Hi, and welcome to Let's Master SQL. This will be a series of videos that will help people master SQL in bits and pieces. I decided to put this together because I've been working with SQL for a few years now and wish that I had something like this where it was just quick and dirty. We can get these videos done. Someone can watch it and get the idea of SQL or exactly what it is that they're looking for. So if they were looking for a specific way to do something, they could find that. So with that said, let's get started. This is episode 1. What in the world is SQL? Maybe you've heard the phrase SQL, heard someone mention something about a SQL database, or maybe you are deciding you want to get into tech or get into software or database management, and this is your first step. So welcome. An overview of what we'll discuss is what is SQL, the background of SQL, types of statements in SQL, and finally the conclusion. What is SQL? SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It's used to manage and query data, and there are many flavors of SQL, and we'll start with our focus on Transact SQL. And what we mean by many flavors of SQL is that there's more than one version that can be used. So right now, like we said, our focus is Transact SQL. Another is called Netezza. And there's slight differences between the different flavors. For instance, with Transact SQL, it's not case sensitive. So you could write your queries in all caps. You can write your queries in lowercase. And that does not matter to SQL. However, Netezza is case sensitive. So you have to be careful with the cases that you use when you're doing your query. So the background of SQL. SQL was originally called SQL. So it's pronounced the same but spelled differently. And it was created in the 1970s by IBM. And SQL stood for Structured English Query Language. I assume that the reason they do that is, or decided to call it that, is because it mainly consists of English words that we're using to tell the database what to do. So SQL, when we talk about these words, we refer to them as statements. So we're putting statements into this window, we will call it, and we'll tell it exactly how we want to manipulate the data or query it. SQL is used in relational database management systems, and some examples of that are SQL Server Management Studio, Oracle, and MySQL. And MySQL is actually bought by Oracle. SQL Server Management Studio is the Microsoft RDBMS. So if you hear anyone talk about that, that's exactly what they're talking about, is which software service are they using to manage their data. So as we said, we use English statements, English words as statements to tell the database or the software, kind of like if we're choosing to work with SQL Server Management Studio, we're going to tell SQL Server Management Studio what to do with the data. So how to query it, manipulate it, or control it. And the types of statements we had are data definition language, or also referred to as DDL. So if you hear someone talk about DDL, this is what they're talking about. These define the actions that you want to take on objects like tables or databases. So when we talk about tables or databases, and we'll have another video about this later, tables pretty much, the way to think about it is the database is the kitchen and it has tables. And on the table, we have these things. So the content on the table is what we call the data. So these statements include create, alter, or drop. So you can tell it to create a table, drop a table, create a database, drop a database, or alter it to make changes to it. The next one is data manipulation language, or DML. And that allows query, addition, or modification of data. So data, again, when we talk about data, we're talking about the contents of the table. So the information within the database is what we're talking about here. And those statements include select, update, and delete. There are some other statements, but those are just an example. And finally, the last type of statements that we use are data controlled languages, or DCL. And these are used for user security to grant or revoke permissions or access. So those statements include revoke and grant. So in conclusion, what is SQL? SQL is used in databases for querying, manipulating, and controlling information or data within the databases. And it mainly consists of English words that are used as statements to tell the database what you need or want. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.